Hey everybody, so apparently my idea of using the Tarrasque, but specifically the Tarrasque spawning Tarrasque, didn't go well last session. And, I just really wasn't expecting that TPK, but in hindsight, well, I can see where I may have fucked up. Anyway, session's canceled. Welcome back. It is us again. I am your host for the week, Isaiah, and I'm here with Josh.
I'm here. Also, pop quiz. What does TPK stand for? Wait, do you actually not know?
No, of course I fucking know.
Okay, I was like,
This is combat.
What did you just say, Matt?
Also, hi, I'm Matt. I'm here.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Yeah, that works.
All right, well.
Also, if your players are fighting a Tarrasque level 5, that's kind of on them. You know, they should have played better.
Who said anything
Just
about
saying,
level
like
5?
they should have known. They should have known when I started playing the Godzilla theme that maybe, just maybe, they should have turned tail and run.
I don't
They
think
did not.
Isaiah said anything about a level.
No, I just added that in. Just wanted to be.
All
If you
right.
throw the Tarrasque at your players at level 5, you are a fucking unit.
I told you guys about the one Puffin Forest story he told, where like they were doing one of those events for Adventure League, and like somebody pulled the deck of many things or something and accidentally got a Tarrasque summoned on them, and then another player wished for the Tarrasque to go to another table or some shit.
I mean, I don't
I
remember you
think you
telling
referenced this like 2 episodes ago.
I don't
Yeah.
remember this ever being mentioned, but also the Tarrasque coming out of the deck of many things is definitely not a thing.
It came out somewhere. I don't remember.
There is a scroll of summoning Tarrasque in.
Oh, maybe that was
I
it.
think it's fucking Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
Which I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty Chadly magic item.
Pretty funny. Fucking.
It's
Oh,
certainly
that's
an item.
Eric.
You imagine it's like, yo, you find a scroll, and the character's like, okay, I read the scroll. And then you have to ask them that question, that question that every DM wants to ask, which is, do you read it aloud? And that player looks at them and goes, yes. And then you go,
Yes, I do.
awesome.
Nice. Sarek's just
yeah.
like, listen, I put my flask, my phylactery in the Tarrasque, and I put the Tarrasque in a scroll, and I just keep it in my back pocket, safekeeping.
Mhm.
It's like, Sarek, why are you like this?
And then he laughs and disappears.
Fingers before finger of death to you.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into it, Josh, do you want to do the thing?
Like ass, it's been so long.
It's been a week, Matt. It's been a week. And hopefully, for you listening, it's also only been a week.
It's been.
Now hit this. Matt, don't! I was on a float! You motherfucking son of a... Come on.
That's wild.
I can't believe you did that to me. Anyway, just ignore Matt and hit the follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you are currently listening on. Or share us with a friend if you have already done so. Damn it! Matt fucked me up. Killed my whole groove. He threw off my groove!
Throw off the Emperor's groove.
You're going out the window, Matt.
Abelard, cut off his balls.
Correct. Cut off his balls.
Well, as you, dear listeners, can probably assume, this week's episode is actually sort of piggybacking off something I had done about 2 weeks ago.
Piggy banking?
Piggybacking. Look, we all got a bit of the brain stupid today. I'm exhausted.
I'm a flawless genius.
Oh, really? You
Yes.
just did Matt not just mess you up and throw off the phone as you did?
That was Matt's fault, not mine.
But if you were flawless, does that not imply that Matt could not have done that to you?
No, because the flaw is Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Just Matt's whole
I
existence.
don't know, boss.
Yeah.
Just Matt as a human being.
I no sabe. Anyway, piggybacking off of what we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This week, I'm gonna. If I yawn again, I'm gonna freak the fuck out.
Just be less tired.
Oh yeah, of course. Shame on me, truly, for not having slept enough.
Infinite energy storage.
Yeah. This week we're talking boss battles. Before I yawn again, and
Boss weapons!
close. The thing before the boss weapons.
I know. I had to do that at least once.
Fair enough.
You got boss weapons? Boss weapons!
Well, it's a good. Yeah, that is something I actually wanted to bring up.
Why
as
doesn't
part of a
D&D
later
have boss
part of
weapons?
that, but mainly like boss loot, because like really, let's be honest with ourselves.
Abelard, take his balls.
Abelard, blast his cock off,
And then take his balls.
and then take his balls. Abelard, blast his balls out the airlock.
Out the airlock. Oh God, Jesus Christ.
It's fine. You just pinch his scrot in like a door hatch, and then let the airlock do its thing.
Oh,
my
God,
I'm just
why?
you know the all right, it's not an actual thing, but you know the thing where like kids or teenagers would like, put their dicks in the vacuums. You're like, oh, this is gonna be like a great blowjob, and then it's like opposite. It's like very bad idea. Do not do that. So now I'm just imagining a bunch of astronauts in space, bored one day, being like, "Yo, man, I'm gonna put my dick in between the airlock vent, and it's gonna be the greatest suck ever," and just gets his whole body like slurped out of him through his cock.
Oh my God, Matt! You know that thing where kids put their dicks in vacuums? No, Matt, I can't say I do.
No, I can't say.
I can't say I do know that thing.
Are you gonna ask if I've ever done that? No.
No, I'm not saying you've ever done that. I'm just saying you've ever heard, teens and stuff as a kid, horny
Sticking your
teen boys.
dicks in the vacuum?
Yeah, surprisingly very common.
What do you mean?
Is it? Did you?
Is
Matt, did you
it?
fucking do
No,
it?
I didn't do
Did
it.
you?
No.
I don't believe you.
Hold on.
No, you know
Okay.
too much about this. I don't believe you. That's sus.
Did you do the research?
Brett, add the sus sound.
Give me the sussy baka. Did you do
Wow.
research on this?
No, it's a common thing.
Common?
Yeah.
Common? Matt, I think we need
Maybe.
to define what
What
common.
the fuck are they doing up in Mayapack?
Yeah.
It's the Wild West out there, bro.
What children? Who? Like, what? I'm fucking weak. Stop.
I don't have the
I'm
words.
surprised
That's
you guys have ever heard that.
crazy.
You know that thing where kids used to stick their dicks in vacuums? Like, what do you mean? You can't just say that so casually.
Well, I thought it was way more common than apparently.
Yo. I don't. I'm so confused. I'm so perplexed.
How lot of weird friends in high school.
You know,
Apparently.
I fucking guess. Jesus Christ.
Anyway.
Where are we? What dimension is it? Who
I don't
are you
even know.
people?
So when the boss pulls the vacuum cleaner,
Oh no.
You get the zuck.
Zuck, 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 zuck.
Yes. So what I was gonna say was, we all know the thing that.
Damn,
that
Isaiah's
gets-
just gonna move past this, huh?
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
have to. 'Cause I'm gonna yawn again, and if I do,
Okay.
I'm
All right.
I'm actually gonna have Abelard take my balls.
Ugh.
The thing that everyone really, really wants, right, when you're playing D&D, is you want loot, and there's no better loot than boss loot, right? Right? When you Abelard cut off his balls, the dragon, you want the loot that comes with it. And in some cases, like our friend, like y'all remember Warlock, when we were playing the Fire Emblem campaign, he absolutely pulled an Abelard on two dragons, two at the same time, and it was fascinating.
I mean,
fun.
I maybe slightly contend the point that y'all want loot. Like, I don't know that I necessarily always care that much about the loot, if I'm being entirely honest.
Well, it's part of the reward loop, right? Like, you do the dungeon
I don't think it
fucking
has to be,
fight
though.
the boss, to get the loot, do more dungeon fucking. You know, like,
Like,
I would say not every dungeon
it is
does
traditionally
need a boss, but it is cool when there is a boss of some sort at the end of a dungeon.
I would go as far as to say that I feel a little, like, robbed if we do, like, a big-ass dungeon, and there's no boss at the end of it. You're like, what?
Yeah, there's.
I was
It
so
does
close.
feel like there should be some kind of ending conflict, which
There
it
should.
doesn't even necessarily have to be a fight. I don't think. I think there just needs to be an ending conflict thing. It could be like a complicated puzzle or some sort of negotiation scene with the fucking Dark Lord or some shit. And, Lord Darkamon.
What, Josh and puzzles? What? Never.
I mean, correct, but but I don't know that I need loot per se. You know?
I guess it depends on the situation of like what you're fighting the boss. Like, are you like what I did with my players where they just got ambushed by the frost giant that turned to a stronger frost giant that turned to an adult dragon.
Was there no loot at the end of that?
Actually, I did upgrade one of my player's weapons because he had one of the teeth. So yeah, I guess there was loot at that one.
I mean,
but
I guess
on certain instances, like let's say I didn't reward that, like as an ambush, like, and it just happens to be like, I don't know, Mega Assassin.
That's such a big boss. Yeah, I mean that's such a big event. I'd be like, if we did that and I was like, I loot the giant dragon, and you're like, there's nothing. I'd be like, no.
It was all paper mache. It's all hollow.
Man, I swear to God, no. Where's my Holy Avenger mat? And you're like, there isn't one. Like, is it gold? And you're like, no. I'm like, is there like a star-colored pointy hat? And you're like, no. I'm just
a star-colored pointy. I mean, I guess the best way to put it is I don't necessarily need there to be loot, but I need there to be a payoff.
There needs to be a reward loop.
Right.
Yeah.
A payoff of some kind, I guess, would be how I would put it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. I mean, does there need to be a reward?
Well, there has to be a reward loop of some kind, right? Because there's no point, like...
Yeah,
there are some people where the reward loop is the roleplay. Sure, but, like, as much as people like to roleplay, there is absolutely a level of, like, well, what do we get out of it? Right? Like, something tangible that you get out of it, be it, like, gold or magic items or favors for NPCs or, like, just a trophy from the monster. There's got to be something there. Because if there's nothing, there's a very tangible
roleplay stuff could be the reward, though. It could be a fictional, like, we did X, Y, or Z thing for X, Y, or Z NPC, and they're gonna slap us a crisp high five later down the road or whatever. You know.
Yeah, that could be also just a good character moment, like I don't know, getting revenge on my father or whatever. You know, like I wasn't expecting to get a sword out of it. I did, but like even if I didn't get the sword, I'm like I got the satisfaction of revenge. Yeah.
Well, so like
simple as that.
In that instance, yes, true, you got the satisfaction of revenge, but like there is also a level of like physicality to being like, oh great, I can now take that boss's weapons or that boss's items or his corpse and just mount it on the front of my car. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it doesn't have to be physical, but there has to be a reward loop. Anyway, that's not really what this episode's about. It's about boss fights in general.
Yeah, we did go.
Which is to say,
there was a little bit of a rabbit hole there.
Yes. All of that to say, boys to men. That girl is poison. Anyway, I don't know why I got just locked in that one.
I take contention with the statement that I am a man, and not in
I
the
wish
like
to be a badger.
No, in the sense that I'm just a little small, frail little bitch boy. I don't think I qualify as a man.
Josh in person is like 5'9" and is quite ripped.
I'm not.
Versus I'm.
I was about to say I'm not 5'9". I am. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I remember you saying you were 5'9". I was like, are you lying to me?
No, you know what it was? Is because I thought you were about to say a bigger number, so my brain just defaulted to being like, no, I'm not. But then you said my actual height. I went,
Either way, I would have just been like, take the W. I could have been like, yeah, Josh, 5'11", and in your head, just as part of you, you're like, I'm gonna take it.
I couldn't though.
Those are called dubs. We take those.
I'll take the other one though. Take the other half of that.
Yes, boys. What? I have to ask you. I'm not gonna be like boss fights thoughts. I'm actually gonna be a little more on point today. As a general question, and I've already answered this about 1 million times. I'll reiterate it for anybody who may be picking up on this episode. You fucking psychopath.
It's not that weird, actually.
What to you makes an interesting boss fight? What aspect of a boss fight do you dial in on to make you go, I'm satisfied with this, my players will be satisfied with this, I've done a good job in some way?
I need to ask a slight clarifying, or not a clarifying, but a honing down question a little bit. When you say interesting boss fight, are we just talking about the event of the fight itself, what makes that particular part of it interesting, because you can sort of include the before and after potentially. So are we not talking about the before and after in this particular instance?
In this particular instance, no. I'm saying
Okay.
what
So just the fight
what
as a self-contained unit.
What the mechanics, the themes, what the phases, the bag of hit points, like what is that thing that you really go like, this is my thing that I'm good at doing when I'm designing boss fights that I enjoy.
Well, I don't think I do particularly good boss fights, so we're not going to answer that question. But, this is going to feel like a non-answer. But like a boss fight is good when there's a real tug of war between the sides, which is to say there's some parts of the fight where it's like, oh shit, we're getting fucked up, and then there's some parts of the fight where the players go, we are absolutely whooping that ass. Like, I think a flow back and forth between those tension points tends to be what makes a boss fight as a self-contained thing feel interesting. Again, not talking about what comes before and after necessarily. But how you get to that, I think there's lots of options to getting to that. And I think all of them, because you could have a crazy battlefield. You could have really just wacky abilities. You could have a monster who's just an absolute slap machine, and the damage or whatever is just wacky woohoo times. Like, there's lots of ways that you can kind of get at that tug of war feel, but I think that tug of war feel is the target. If you imagine playing Dark Souls, that moment of like, I'm hitting him, I'm getting him, oh shit, he just smacked me really hard, that was a lot of damage. Oh no, okay, now I'm scared, hold on, gotta move, Estus Flask, right? And then you go back to, okay, we're back to neutral, I get. It's the fighting game thing where sometimes you're getting comboed and sometimes you're comboing them.
Oh my god!
Everyone take a shot. As I was talking about it, I thought about it. Hold on. Literally, as I was saying.
So you were talking, and then you're like, oh shit, this is gonna be a fighting game thing, isn't it? Is that what
literally?
You said?
Yes, literally. As I brought up Dark Souls, I went, oh, it's the thing in fighting game, because I said back to neutral, and then that kicked in my fighting game brain. I went, oh yeah, so it's that thing where it's like, you're comboing and doing beating the shit out of your opponent, and then they beat the shit out of you, and then both of you reset to neutral, and now you're really tense because the fight has shifted, because like, maybe you're lower on health or lower on resources. They might have more meter than you, or they might have 2 characters and you're down to 1 character if it's a team game. It's that.
One of the things I've kind of noticed at least with 5e is the last cannon bosses seem to be more fun to run.
Yes.
Like, correct. Bosses that just hit like a fucking truck, but they only last like 2 or 3 rounds of combat.
Because
like 2 or 3 rounds is like the perfect balance of like time of boss without people getting like bored.
This is literally what I said a few episodes ago about Dark Souls fights and why they're so good. It's because they are quick and they're visceral and they're brutal and they end and start super quickly. So you don't feel like you're like, oh my god, can this fucking fight end already? And then you die and you're like, Jesus fucking.
Because I've heard the whole like just like up the damage and lower the health of the monster idea for years, and I was always like, oh, but what about the CR? But now I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do that. Fuck the CR, fuck the math. It's broken anyways. And like, it's not like I'm upping the damage by like, oh, this monster does 1d6 plus 1d6 fire damage. Now I'm gonna make it 20d10 and then 3d6 fire. It's like,
there's other ways
by like 1 damage die, like nothing crazy.
Right. There's other ways you could do that too, though, that aren't just up the damage, lower the health too. There's other ways to go about it. But yes, I think because what it comes down to is no matter.
You never want to slog for a boss fight.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying more specifically is doing anything for an extended period of time, no matter how much it's good, no matter how good, how much it's good, no matter, I was going to say how much you like it, no matter how good it is, doing anything for too long is going to get stale just across the board, just like in life. Like, even if you really, like, even people who are really, you know, the kind of crazy people who put 5,000 hours in Warframe, you know, they can only play so much in a day before they eventually get bored of the game, right? There's a thing, like, you can't do the same thing over and over until you get to a certain point where it just doesn't matter how cool it is. It's gonna lose that interest because the human brain is built on novelty. So a boss fight going on for too long is going to lose the novelty regardless of what you do, unless it's like constantly changing. But if it's changing so much that the novelty is resetting, you're arguably doing kind of multiple boss fights in one fight anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that too, which is not a bad thing necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we? What are we talking about? I feel like I just went on a rant.
You did. Well, it's part of the, like, what makes boss fights interesting. And,
yeah.
You sort of, to your own admissions, gave a non-answer, but, like...
I did kind of give a not. I know, like I said, yeah.
I mean, we kind of rounded off into a natural answer, like, quick.
Yeah, for you, it's like the novelty, it's
yeah.
it's the quick, like, visceral sort of feel to it, which, fair enough.
Yeah. Also, if it's the monsters, like, fun to run, because there are times when you pick a boss monster, you're like, you read the stat block and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. And then once you get into the game, it sucks running the monster. I've had that happen to me, like, back in the 3-year game a couple of times. And I was like, man, this is not fun to run. My players are not having fun in this fight. I am not using stat blocks like this again.
Yeah, I know, Isaiah, what you were looking for was kind of a mechanical answer of what thing do you add to the boss fight to, like, make it interesting. I know that's what you were fishing for there, but yeah, I don't think I have any one thing, I guess, is what I'm getting at. It just needs...
what about in other games? That's not like 5e.
I think it's the same deal.
Really?
Yeah, I think you just need that tug of war, that back and forth, and that changing of momentum throughout the situation.
Yeah, so I think the mechanical thing you're looking for is balance. You want, like, a balanced encounter. You want there to be highs and lows. You don't want it to be a complete shit stomp or in either direction.
It doesn't have to be balanced per se. It could be in one favor or the other, but there needs to be moments of, oh no, I'm concerned. Oh no, I'm doing well. Oh no, I'm concerned.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I think I misworded that. Not balance as in mechanical balance, but like dramatic balance.
Yeah, like you want
a balance of drama. Yes,
of combat, the situation has changed. Well, actually, Josh, I don't think you were here when I talked about the Devil Duelist boss fight I had with my players, but I made him a little difficult, and it was a good fight. And it was on and go. Like, my players, he would deal a fuck ton of damage to them. He'd maneuver a lot. And then Joe came in and fucking critted and, you know, Battlemaster maneuvered the shit out of the boss. Right. Then he got up next turn and he's like, okay, now it's my turn. So it was a good back and forth. And it was like every turn of combat, it flip-flopped between, oh no, the devil is winning. Oh no, the players are winning. Oh no, the devil is winning.
Yeah.
And it was a good, like, oh shit, what's happening?
I think the thing is you really want to avoid a rut. You don't ever want to be in a situation where the players have done the same thing 3 turns in a row. You know, they haven't moved, they haven't used any different ability. They've just done their same 3 attacks or whatever that they usually do for like 3 turns in a row. That means you're in a rut situation, and the boss is particularly interesting because nothing is changing, nothing's moving, there's no back and forth there. And it doesn't even, the back and forth, quote unquote, doesn't even need to be anything crazy. It could just be a player's in a situation where it's like, haha, I have you. And then the boss like teleports away and it's like, motherfucker, where'd he go? What? You know,
teleports
like
behind you, nothing personal.
Yeah. It just needs to be getting out of that rut a lot of the time and a momentum shift. You know, there was a point I remember a particular boss fight in my game where, Sam's character jumped on top of a dragon because the dragon was flying around and Sam's character had no ranged options as a paladin. So he was like, all right, I'm going to jump on and Misty step onto the dragon's back. And I was like, okay. And then Sam did his turn. And then once his turn was over, I was like, cool. The dragon uses his legendary action to teleport away so that you are no longer on his back and you start falling.
And then you plummet.
Yeah, which is enough of a change up to be like, I was in a good position. I am now in a bad position. Yeah.
You going?
I was adjusting. But yeah.
Matt, is yours basically the same answer?
Sorry. Wait, what was the question?
The same thing. God damn. Like, what is the thing that you focus on? Is it the same thing? Is it dramatic balance or?
It's not one answer, unfortunately. It's like a lot of different things. It's what's relevant for the story or what's going on in the game. Mechanically, it's like I said, it's hard. Doesn't overstay its welcome. Is it fun to run for me as a DM? And then also as a DM, like you add your own flair to every, creature, boss, villain, whatever. Just give the boss monster a little bit of personality, have it talk shit or whatever. Like that kind of helps and adds a little more flair to the fights, makes it a little more fun. So there's a couple of different things that go into it. I think from all the years of watching Animu and fucking movies, and you see how like a boss fight kind of,
should feel.
World of Warcraft raids. Yeah, how a boss fight should feel.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned raiding.
As a gamer.
It's funny you mentioned raiding, Matt, because often the most boring part, raids are interesting. What?
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because you're like, the most boring part is actually the raid, and I was gonna be like, of course.
No. No, raids are the best part of MMOs. No, but often the most boring part of a raid is when you get to that. There's often a stage in the raid where you're not really doing anything other than just attacking the boss. Like 14 has this a lot where you're just attacking the boss and they're just doing a lot of like raid-wide damage.
Yeah.
And those phases tend to be between other phases where you have to be paying attention. And those are often the most boring chunks because your brain just goes into autopilot mode and you're like, boss is going to do that, do this, do that, do this. I'm just going to keep attacking him. I don't need to pay attention, especially if you're the tank or the DPS, you really don't need to pay attention. And even the healers who need to pay attention a little bit more, mostly are just AoE healing anyway, so they're not paying that much attention. So yeah, those are often the shitty bits is when it's like, nothing's really going on where we've hit like kind of a neutral state. But also the other thing that you said was it's kind of multiple answers. It being kind of multiple answers is why I said a really umbrella answer to cover that multiple answers problem. Because I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Because even if you really like think about it, yes, there are boss monsters, air quotes, boss monsters in D&D in general. Where as soon as the game, I'm going to go back to 5th edition, 2014. Legendary monsters. Those are called the boss monsters, but they're not set like they have the tools there where it's like, all right, here's layer actions, here's like the regional effects. The boss gets cool legendary actions. Now you have mythic monsters. Now on top of mythic monsters, if they ever fucking bring those back, now you have monsters that have a bazillion reactions and no legendary actions for whatever fucking reason. Like, so you have interesting like monsters that can do multiple things on a turn, but D&D never specifically says, and now you fight the big bad, unless it's like the very, very end of an adventure module or some shit where it's like, now you fight Strahd, and it's like, okay, now you fight Oral, and you're like,
by the way, I think D&D should do that, and I really hate that D&D doesn't specifically call out which monsters are boss monsters. I think they should.
I think specifically they say like legendary monsters are technically boss monsters, but they don't say their boss monsters.
but
They're
why?
like, these are legendary. They are powerful. They are
I think they
full
should
of lore or whatever.
I think they should go back to what 4th edition did and classify
Nerds.
monster types, where it's like this is the bruiser, this is the frontline tank monster, this is the control monster, this is the ranged monster, this is the boss like 4th
something
edition
I
had
do-
that, and it was a great
Yeah.
idea, and I don't understand why they threw it out.
I do really enjoy with the MCDM books because that's how they do that with
Yeah,
all their
it's
monsters. And again, I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago where I love
It
the idea
helps.
that each monster has a little paragraph called tactics, and it's
Yeah.
like this is how you can like
this kind of monster works.
optimally fight as the monster. You don't have to follow these rules, but here is a good tactic, for I don't know, hypothetical like MCDM 4th edition, not dragon. Where it's like, okay, so instead of you open up with the Omega like fart blast, then you fly in the air 30 feet, and then the dragon has its spike attack that it can do from a range, and then there you go. It'll say something like that.
Well, I mean, yes, the tactics thing is good, but I also think the classification thing really
Helps.
because it helps you design the encounter. You could be like, I have 3 frontline guys and 2 backline guys, or like 1 controller guy, 2 range guys, and 3 tank guys, or like, yeah, and having boss monster as a tag could also help with that situation.
Yeah. Like I'm reading right now.
This is kind of a slightly different topic.
sorry, I'm reading the chunk in the monster manual right now. Legendary creatures. A legendary creature can do things that ordinary creatures can't do. Legendary actions, special actions they take outside their turns. And a few other, environmental magical actions they can do, lair actions. That's it. Nothing that these are boss monsters, nothing that these are.
Yeah,
like,
so why?
They don't even really say, they say a legendary creature is a legendary creature. Like
Right,
that
which
doesn't help me.
Yeah. Doesn't tell you anything really.
No.
I mean, you can make some inferences, but yeah.
Yeah.
God damn it, 5e and your stupid natural language bullshit.
See, I
hate
like
that.
the natural language, but
don't.
I want the natural language, and then afterwards, like they've been doing recently with some of their like newer feats and abilities, where it's like, here's like 1 sentence natural flavored language, and then here's the mechanical shit that the ruling,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, because it's like
Because-
it's nice little like read, and you're like, okay,
Well, because at the end of the day, these rule books are reference books. So, a reference book, I need the information laid out in not natural language because it's harder to find when you lay it out in natural language. That's one of the reasons it's so hard to look shit up in 5e, because it's couched in the natural language, so you have to fish the mechanics out of the natural language that's in the paragraph. But this is a reference book. I shouldn't be doing that. Anyway. I say go somewhere else.
take me to
Gotcha.
church.
I was just waiting.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I could rant about that shit. Drives me so crazy. I could rant about it for.
Okay, I was gonna say, so a slight inverse, and it kind of goes into what Matt said about like story stuff. Is how often do you rely on things like regional effects outside of the fight itself, or the lead up to the fight? And do you how effective do you think that regional effects are, at least as far as 5e is concerned, in sort of setting a scene for a boss fight?
I feel like I should be using more regional effects as a DM because they're there. But most of the time I end up forgetting they exist and not using them at all. Some of them are pretty interesting, especially the newer ones for dragons from my favorite book. They give them a lot more flavor and fun.
You couldn't even understand you.
Yeah, your mic just scuffed the shit out of that.
Yeah, that was so scuffed. That was hilarious.
I keep having to whip my head across my mic to do that.
Nice.
But yeah, like they add a lot more in Fizzbands. They also add like newer ones from whatever the new Planescape book and shit. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're, again, it's a useful tool. As a DM, I don't use them. I should, honestly, because some of them are cool, some of them are neat, some of them can set up really nice things for the upcoming fight, or like hint at like you're entering the lair of a powerful creature. I don't know, maybe as laziness, I just never end up doing it. Also, right now with my magic school campaign, it's a little hard to use regional effects when you're at school, but that's just me.
Well, so what you can do there, I don't talk about this a lot, so I don't need everyone to take a shot. So we're gonna talk about fate.
Nani?
And I guess because of all the shit that JJK like was inspired by when it comes to fate, like
about to say reality marbles.
Kind of. So sort of. Yeah. There's this thing in Fate called bounded fields, where it's like you basically declare somewhere as a domain, kind of like a domain expansion in JJK. But things in that domain basically follow whatever rules you set for the bounded field. Right. So there's a whole thing of like when Medusa in like the Stay Night and the Unlimited Blade Works sets up a bounded field in their high school, everyone has this feeling of like sickness and weakness, and their sort of strength gets drained from them to a degree because she's Medusa and snakes are her thing, right? And she's like sucking their like mana out of them. You could do something like that where it's like, oh, you know, Orgel. I always use Orgelorg because of that fucking Adventure Time character, like the space squid. Where he's like, oh, he's popped up and now like the entire quad is like this weird shimmering death zone where everyone is like turning to stone, or they feel like their body is, or they're sort of petrifying, like they're turning to stone or something like that, or like all the flowers are dying. I think you can do that, and that's like a cool like, you know, it's like so the students are like, Professor, something's going wrong, and they're like, things don't go wrong inside the school, and they're like, someone set up a bounded field, and they're like, fuck, all right, no one panic. And now they are immediately panicking.
Yeah, that is definitely having little pocket dimension reality nonsense is a thing you could do, Matt. I think though, let's perhaps take a step away from 5e specifically on this, because so to answer the first part of your question, in terms of using regional effects, I mean, you've been in my game. I've used them a little bit. And they're fine. They add a little bit of fun. But I think you can kind of ignore, don't think about it the way 5e sets them up. I mean, the way 5e sets up the idea of regional effects is fine as like a training wheels version of the better idea, I think, which is to say 5e's like, oh, there's this weird powerful creature in the area and it changes things in some sort of funky magical way, and here's a couple of bullet point ideas, right? And then utilize these ideas when the players are within the lair of the weird thing that's changing around it. Totally fine, does the job, sure. That's like baby's first steps though. Really what I think you should be doing is showing how a boss creature, dragon, warlord of the land, weird crazy lich, whatever, beholder, is influencing the area in totality. Like really show this creature being here has entirely changed how this area functions, and take it beyond just like some of the, because the regional effects in 5e are fine, but they're very basic, a lot of them. Take it a step further. So for example, let's say there's a lich that the players are like trying to hunt down, and he lives in this tower on top of this massive hill. I'm kind of stealing from Black Company here. He lives on top of the big like castle on top of this hill, and he has this plan where he's collecting bodies to like do this super evil magic, ritual thing to make himself a mega zombie servant or something. And the players arrive in the town where the lich is present. Like the lich is up in the mountain overlooking this town, and all of the people there act a little vacant, like they're sort of zombie-like already, and they're doing stuff that seems a little odd, but, well, I don't know, maybe they just are really depressed or something, and then you find out, oh, a couple of the town's members are digging up graves and selling bodies to somebody, but nobody knows who. Like, really build that influence out into like a full adventures worth of a thing, and that's where I think regional effects go from like a fun little idea to like a big, cool, memorable thing. You know, they're selling the bodies to the Lich for his evil plan. He's like draining their life force, so everyone acts in a very peculiar manner. So anytime they try to interact with NPCs in this town, it's really difficult. Also, there's like these patrols of undead that they have to deal with at night that the townspeople don't actually know where they're coming from. Like, really build out like an adventure out of it, you know, if you want it to be a really memorable, powerful boss creature. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I know exactly what you're talking about, and you are literally touching on something I was just about to bring up.
Okay, well.
Which is, at least as far as 5e is concerned, I think there's like a tragic lack of use in regional effects because they do so much work for you.
They're very surface level. Like,
well, I think that's all you need sometimes, right? Like, because I agree, it is very surface level, totally. But I think that surface level understanding gives you a lot of really interesting ideas to play with that helps you branch off, you know?
Well, that's why I said that's why I said they're training wheels, right? Like,
yeah.
Regional effects are sort of baby's first steps into this idea, but you should expand beyond them because they're not.
Yes, I agree.
There's more there. There's a lot more potential there.
Yeah.
So the game is giving you a jumping off point, I guess.
Yeah, because so every major boss fight I've done in my game, I've used the regional effects, either made them up or just found ones or hodgepodge them together. Not only because I want the like direct area around the fight to be cool, but I've at least for me, it's always helped me extrapolate and set scenes really well, which I think is really important, right? It's like, yes, you're in the cave, and then a red dragon shows up, and you're like,
I didn't even get a hint, didn't see any bones, didn't see any bards welcome. Like, come on.
And I think that leads to another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is I think a big part for me of what makes a boss fight interesting is the preparation for the fight. I think a lot of the times when you're playing in games, there's like you sort of get a feel for what's going on, right? Like if you're on a ship and then someone does the Pirates of the Caribbean, like right? You can feel pretty confident that it's either going to be like a Kraken or an Aboleth, right? Like, but that's just sort of you being there because you need to be there, and that's kind of the only context you're getting. But I think something really cool that a lot of people miss out on is the build-up and the strategy because of the build-up, right? Like, if you're in the water and let's say you're sailing from one island to the next, and you start seeing like, as you're sailing, like corpses kind of floating, and like you can sort of describe how there's seagulls kind of flapping around in circles, and then you see like a corpse, and then some driftwood come by, and then it's immediately the players are like, fuck, something's going on here. I don't know, boss, you know? And then you can, depending on what you do, you can help sort of build out, right? If one of the boss fights is like a dragon turtle, you can tell them just as a passing comment, just like a nothing comment, be like, you know, amidst all the driftwood, you see like a small, not even an island, like a little inlet, 50 miles out, basically on the horizon line. And you point it way in front of them, just like leading up the trail. So now they're thinking, okay, either something's at that inlet is something, or we just have to avoid that area. And then the next day comes, and then there's more ships. And the players are like, what the fuck is going on? And the captain's like, oh, well, this is a pretty popular like trade route. So it's not surprising to see ships. It's just surprising to see them in pieces. And then as they're just, as the players are investigating, someone goes, one of the players makes a perception check, and it's like, you see that inlet again. All the way out. On the other side of the boat. And then the players are like, okay, either that thing is moving or we're sailing in circles. Both are bad. And then they can start asking, and then it goes around, right? And now you start being like, if it's not a dragon turtle and it's like a kraken, you can do like the Pirates of the Caribbean, like sort of a pull in the tide. I'm not going to do this whole scenario, but you can allow the players to put the pieces together themselves and start planning accordingly for the fight. Will they do it? Fucking big maybe. They can just be like
solid maybe.
Because a lot of players do this too. It's not all on the DM. A lot of players, when something starts going wrong, the players just buckle themselves in like they're on a roller coaster and brain no worky, and they're just like, well, we're just gonna hit it till it dies, and then that can go terribly for them, or that can go fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think it puts the onus on the players as well to start putting things together, and their preparedness is what can make a fight super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're basically just giving a more specific example of what I was saying, where you're building out an adventure hook essentially from the boss monster itself, as opposed to building an adventure inward and then deciding on a boss at the end. You have a boss idea and then you build out the rest of it from that.
Yes. Yeah. No. Like I said, yes, that is absolutely 100% what I was.
That's
why I said you touched on what I was going to talk about.
Yeah, which then becomes, when you think about it, is sort of the more advanced master's degree version of regional effects.
Yes, it's very good. It's also very fun. Nothing chaps my cat is usually something I say when something's bad. Nothing gets me going like when one player, when nothing rustles my jimmies when a player.
That's also kind of bad though. Anyway,
catches on to something and immediately like, Christ, like, like yes, yes, sow the seeds of panic, yes. For me, it's almost always Ant who's like, fuck,
and then
like,
bonus points if you've sowed the seeds well enough that they figure out a weakness or a strategy or an exploit preemptively before fighting the boss.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
That's,
if it's like, oh, this lady's got 2 little pinpricks on her neck, and someone cuts to somebody immediately just sharpening stakes, nope,
it's
I know what that is. I'm not playing with this. Hey, someone got silver coins. Like, why do you need silver coins? Starts melting down silver and coating swords with it. I did that in my first campaign a few times actually, because you often players have an ass load of silver pieces just as change for their gold. Yeah. So I remember once I melted down like 100 silver pieces, which is a lot of money. That's like someone's weekly wages for like a decent paying job. I just melted the bitches down to I coated like a couple swords. I made about 24 silver bullets. But I'm saying bullets, I mean like musket ball bullets. And I was like prepared. It was very, very funny. I think I also made a couple scrolls of daylight because I was like, nope. Everyone's like, I mean, it's a vampire, right? How bad could it be? And my character's like, no, you don't. Shut up. Shut up. Don't say those words. Don't put that in the universe.
Don't put that on me.
I think I mentioned this in the 3-year game videos where like the early beholder fight my players had, where they were in the lair and it's just full of stone statues, and immediately they're all like, oh no, we're gonna fight a Medusa. This is horrible. And then they're like, they find out from an NPC, it's like, no, actually it's a beholder. He just really likes making sculptures. And it's just like, oh, this is even worse. You can like trick your players, thinking it's like a layer of one monster and that's another. Yeah. He just likes to.
You can do that for sure.
They have that petrification beam, so it's like, might as well use it.
I think one of my favorite ones I did. setting up a boss fight, at least, and this took a lot of cooperation on the players, and I'm so proud that they all did it. It was basically like an outer god thing. It like took the form of a man, but it like didn't look right. It was like weird and veiny and
Come
had,
on, baby.
It looked like Venom is insofar as its overall build, and like it's like the weird inky black with the white veins. In one of the regional effects, I don't remember what monster I took this from because I did take it from something, but it's like, no. I remember what this was because I talked about this on podcast. It was the what is it called? It's like it's a zone where a lot of one emotion happens, like a lot of death, and then people are angry. You know what I'm talking about? God, I don't remember what book it was from.
Not
I think it was Tasha's.
Or a Nightwalker?
No. It's not like a monster. I took a regional like an overworld effect and I boiled it down into a regional effect.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not.
I know it's in Tasha's because
Wait, Tasha's.
Yes, Tasha's had this. Hold on. Now
Well, you're talking about the like the special
the
magical
special ones,
phenomenons or whatever.
Yeah,
yes,
those are cool.
Yeah.
I like those. I'm actually going to be using those pretty soon in the current dungeon I
used
play
those
in.
like twice.
Yeah, they're fun.
they are. They're super neat.
What the fuck are they called?
Still want to use the Mimic Colony at some point. I just don't know
magical
when
phenomenon.
Yeah.
They're called specifically.
I literally just said it. Magical phenomenon.
No. Yes. Like the
He's
general
looking for
term
the
is magical
specific.
phenomenon, but the specific thing.
He's looking for the
Unraveling
specific
magic.
one.
Eldritch storms,
Emotional echoes, that's what they're called.
echoes, enchanting springs.
Yeah. So I turned the emotional echoes thing into a regional effect. And it, like, because one of the boss's abilities was to like take over people's minds. So I had done a lot of like sowing the seeds of you're not really in control right now. And I know I can't remember which one Ant had. I think he had hatred. And he was pulling no punches. Like, his character just said some out of pocket shit, and I was like,
wildin'.
Oh,
yeah, and like to the point where I was like, is he taking this too far? But everybody else was playing into it, and I was like, oh my god, it's working! Holy shit! I'm the guy. I'm the mad scientist. Like, guys, it's working! Holy shit! Holy god! Someone write this down. Write this down.
Write this down. We need to do this again.
I think like I know one of the characters had like doubt. And it was just this like, it's the really severe kind of doubt where it feeds into like anxiety, but not quite fear. It's just like, I can't. No, we can't. We can't do it. Nope. Like, why can't we do it? It's like, we just can't. You don't understand. Shut up. You're dumb. We can't do it. Like, it just was this like, it was crazy. And everyone was, I think the only one who didn't have that issue was, I think Snubby's character. No, because Snubby's was boldness, and her character was already like hyper bravado, so just doubled. It was great. Anyway, all of this to say is like, it was really it worked well as far as I think, and I think it was really interesting and neat. Kind of that whole point kind of went nowhere, but I just wanted to gush about this.
I guess. Fair enough. I was gonna say you gotta transition out of that, or
I don't. I'm trying to recollect my thoughts.
Okay. How about them Yankees?
And it's not about
getting their asses kicked
Yankee Spider-Man. It's all about the Mets, baby.
All about the Mets,
All
baby.
about the Mets, baby. Not about the money, Spider.
It's not about.
I'm
running out of vampire.
Right. Well, Josh, we kind of have your answer, but I was gonna say, is there any boss fights that you particularly enjoyed or think you did well, or one that you had an idea that maybe didn't work the way you wanted it to, but you really wanted to like maybe try that idea again, mechanically speaking?
Steal a quote from Scrubs. What was your best moment in medicine?
Yeah. Well, because you said you don't think you've done good boss fights, which I don't agree with.
I mean,
out of all the poopy ones, which one was the least
yeah.
poopy?
Which was the least poopy? I don't know. Trying to think. Man, wow.
You want me to vamp for a while you think of it?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
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 No.
This
is bisexual.
Yeah.
Shut up, Isaiah.
I think, like I mentioned in the 3-year videos, the Garion fight. I think that was pretty good. Lots of minions. It was high level 18. I think it was 8. I said 18. I don't remember. It's been forever in those videos. He hit hard. I gave him a mythic phase. Had a lot of minions. Teleported a lot, which annoyed the fuck out of the players. So it was funny for me. Currently in this campaign, I've only had a handful of bosses. One of them was the devil fight recently. Before that, the one I really liked was I actually did and I mentioned this a couple of times on podcasts, that the article by James Hake on D&D Beyond, the epic house rules attack its weak point. I did that for an Umber Hulk. And that fight ended up being really, really cool. My players, because it was a double whammy, because the Umber Hulk, they had the whole confusion ray. So if you look at it, you're standing there confused and dazed and you're not doing anything, and it's invulnerable. So it basically can't take it nearly, it doesn't take any damage. And I think my players fought that when they were like level 4 or 5. So it was pretty tough.
Yeah, definitely sounds, especially because easy damage is you take that away from low level players. They're just like, shh, what do we do?
Yeah,
I can see that being, honestly, I think that thing is way more effective at low to medium level than it is at high level. Because at some point, a high level player is going to be like, DM, what do you mean Finger of Death didn't work? And you're like,
yeah.
It just didn't work. Okay, it didn't work.
I mean, I did on the dragon boss for the 3-year game, and that worked out pretty okay. Again, players were high level, so they were able to pass the find the weak spot check within 2 fucking turns. So, but if I upped the DC maybe, but that wouldn't have been fun.
So the one thing I think I don't know, I've never done it, so I'm not going to presume. But I think the thing that I think really makes the attack its weak point is, at least as far as I think it works, is you need something, or it's good if you have something that is so huge that it's not gonna if a player hits it with a lightning bolt, it's gonna scratch its ass and be like, huh, what was that?
I mean, it's meant for, you can put it on any monster. That's the beauty of this. He even gives examples of you want to put it on a dragon, works perfectly. We all watch the Hobbit movies, we know what happens. But what if you want to put it on something else, like a beholder, and it's you can make one of its eyes, or a lich, it's wearing its phylactery or something, he gives a couple of different examples of how to implement it on any monster. And this is just one other option. Just, you don't have to use it. I've used this one, I think twice now, or at least 3 times. I also like using, there's the Z Bashu video he did on making monsters more Witcher-like.
Yes.
That one also is pretty decent for boss monster builds, where it's again, the 5e math is fucky wucky, so you're just kind of whatever. I take the average party, do that's your CR, give it, a bunch of resistances and vulnerabilities, make sure it has a weakness or 2, That's also pretty easy, pretty fun. And then as a DM, it's all right, I'm it's challenging and it's fun for me to run, and it's going to scare the players, but it's not I'm throwing an impossible task at them like a dickhead. I don't know, Josh.
One thing I didn't want to say.
Oh,
I wasn't saying that your method didn't work. I'm sorry if it came off that way. I guess I meant in my head.
No, I didn't.
I feel like that system works the best in the Shadow of Colossus style. It's just too big to notice you. At least for low level, right?
No,
if you have something that like.
No, I could see that. Yeah. No, I wasn't taking it that way. No, I just Yeah,
because I was thinking about it like, if the players are lower level, which I think that's when it works its best. They probably don't have a lot of hit points to like go several rounds making those checks. Like I would almost keep it out of combat, technically speaking, until they've figured out what the weak point is. And then once they figure out what that is, then combat starts. And then, if it's like a Colossus, like in Shadow of the Colossus, it smacks them once and does like 3/4 of their health. And now they're like, oh my God,
Yeah. I know.
I think that's for me, that's how I always envision it working.
I know you haven't played Baldur's Gate, but have you heard of the whole golem fight thing, Isaiah?
I have. I got to experience it through Josh, and it was very funny to listen to.
I hate that fight. I have
thought of like 4 or 5 different ways to do a fight similar to that in my game, and every time I get to a moment where I'm like, I could do the fight here, but it also seems really annoying.
Bro, that fight is... Oh, God, that fight's so aggravating. Mostly because of the golem having damage resistance, everything. I think that's honestly one of the worst.
It's like immunity, damage resistance, way too much
to a
fucking health.
Shitload of stuff and resistant to everything but bludgeoning damage. It's really, and it's got a ton of health and the lava turning off all the time. It's just no.
Well, I like the idea of like you have to activate the lure to weaken it, then you have to lure it to the area, and then you trap it, and then it's like okay, then do it two more times, and you're like fuck, or three times, and you're like fuck. So like that is annoying, but like the initial idea of like this fight is nearly impossible, but there is a way to cheese it, or not cheese it, but there is a way that the developers put in to make it like a one-shot hit.
It's not a
one. I think
it's
that's
not
super
a one
cool.
Shot.
Well, I'm saying like if you were to implement in your games.
Oh, you could make it a one shot in your game, sure, but it's definitely not in Baldur's Gate.
No. But like you can make it a one shot in your game, or not even a one shot. You could just have it that like the boss seems super impossible to defeat. Your players are scared, whatever. They activate the lava, they lure it to the area, it gets smushed, and now it's, I don't know, if I'm using the Umber Hulk as an example, now it's just Carapace is fucking destroyed, and now it's just a weird naked Umber Hulk, and you're like, oh, he's weak now. We can do damage to it. Let's go. And and then you have a semi-normal Umber Hulk fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, having like environmental stuff that fucks with the fight can be fun. In terms of fights that I think went decently well, I mean, I don't know. I guess probably the ancient Sapphire Dragon fight, who was also a Shadow Dragon. But
nice.
I didn't really do anything for that fight. I was just running the monster as is, and just the stat block had enough stuff going on that it was relatively interesting. Like, I can't think of any fight where I really added anything super interesting to it. I mostly just used something that was already there that worked out decently well.
Yeah, I mean, but that's fine.
I mean,
like, if the monster worked, it could be a memorable fight. Like, sorry, what were you gonna say, Isaiah? My bad.
No, go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was it. That was all I was gonna say.
I was gonna say, I think there is absolutely something to say about people just running the fight as is. I think a lot of DMs either think they know better, because I've seen this before online, people being like, well, I had to do something to make the fight interesting. It's like, you like don't though. Like, I think a lot of people think they know better than the rules, and I think if you just run the fight orthodox, I think there's plenty of interest that can come out of that, right? Like, the game was designed by professionals with a certain feeling in mind. Maybe once in a while I'll take their word for it. And I know I have to practice what I preach on this. Absolutely. I'm aware. Oh, but I think it is still worth mentioning.
Okay, well, since we have both sides of the aisle in this scenario, Isaiah, is there any fight that stood out to you on your side of the table, stood out to you in my current campaign? Is there one that you were like, that was the good one?
Yeah, I liked Baragon a lot. lion dude.
Oh, the Leonin Admiral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was like, because I liked the whole shut down the things affecting the gate. And that was really what made him difficult, because me and Sam had, dealing rough, like, Sam dealt more damage than me, obviously, and Kai does damage, but not in, like, close range. Mm-hmm. Having to, like, take down the thing, I can't remember what they were specifically.
He was creating portals that were summoning more minions.
Yeah. And then, him going after Kai and Zephyr. So us being like, guys, the squishies are getting mauled, what do we do? And he would just punch it faster and harder. And then once those went down, we were able to do the thing I like, which is, okay, we've engaged with the interesting mechanic. Time for the bully beatdown.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that one worked particularly well. I liked,
It's funny you say that, because
Dragon worked well.
The teleporting around situation, I added that.
Oh.
That was my idea, whole cloth.
I also liked Ledham's fight. I like it when the boss is just you but cooler, like Ledham was just a dude who
he was literally
fair enough, was like 7 feet tall, but
he was literally a lich stat block, straight up. He was
he was like engaging
lich.
all of us in close range, and he was taking licks, yeah, but like the fact it felt like from my side of the table, he was literally just fucking Hassan of the Mountain, because that was his art. It felt like we were fighting Hassan of the Mountain from Fate.
Interesting. Okay.
And then, tanking the disintegrate was like a fucking high point for me. Because it was like, this is what I want. Like, this character was built for. I'm doing my thing.
Yep.
Every time I get to do shit like that, I'm like, yeah. That's literally why I took the fucking epic boon, to just tank shit.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
I can do the smite me Zeus, you don't have the balls, gets hit by lightning.
Yeah, I mean,
have y'all seen that picture or that video?
No.
It's a dude outside holding a shovel, and he's like, go on, Zeus, strike me down, you don't have the balls, and then he gets struck by lightning.
Oh, is it the one where the camera just cuts as soon as he gets struck because he's holding his phone? Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
nice.
Was he holding like a shovel or something, pointing it straight up in a thunderstorm?
Yep.
Stupid nonsense.
It's like, you know what? I don't necessarily believe in a higher power, but that feels like divine retribution.
Mm-hmm. It was just like, I haven't had a sacrifice in a decent while.
Yeah, Dolette.
Yeah, so you're saying those were interesting because you had to engage with the specific mechanic, and then once you sort of solved the problem, you could slap them around.
Yes, and I think a big thing with engaging with the mechanic is, and this is not easy, I'm not saying it's easy, but making your mechanic
not annoying.
A task, but not an annoying task. Because I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I don't even think I've done that very well at times. I would say at least 2/3 of the time, I'm like, after the boss fight, I'm excited that I did the mechanic, but I'm aware that it likely did not work out as well as I kind of wanted it to, even if it worked out okay,
Right.
Yeah, I had that a lot in the 3-year game for a while too.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons the Grimforge fight in Baldur's Gate 3 is annoying, because constantly having to keep that fucker in the lava gets aggravating real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely a thing where having the weird specific mechanic become aggravating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fine line. I think it has to. I think the trick to not making it aggravating is that it can't be something that feels tedious. Like, make sure to pull the lever every couple of turns, or like, make sure to keep the boss in this very specific spot. Like anything that's kind of like tedious, like you're just sort of nudging a bar one way or the other. I think that's usually when they get annoying.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just off the top of my head, of course, but yeah.
I think for you know what, I kind of want to do both, not only for like time's sake, but now I'm kind of interested. Is there any boss fights where you think you could have done the mechanic better, or you kind of wonder like, it worked, but like not as well as I wanted it to, or not exactly the way I wanted it to, because how well it is, it's kind of subjective person to person. Like, but it didn't work out the way you thought it would.
Could have done the mechanic better. Oh, in. I now have to remember. Am I misconstruing fights here? Hold on. Yeah. So, in the fight with the ancient Sapphire Shadow Dragon, Sapphire Dragons have the ability to burrow because they're like subterranean, and I feel like I underutilized some of the stuff he could do because he had a couple of abilities that were like related to the burrowing thing. And I think I kind of underutilized that, and I think that came down to because the area you guys were fighting him, I couldn't fully utilize it in a way that made it particularly threatening. Like, it was just kind of annoying. Like, he burrowed out of the way a couple of times, but it was just kind of annoying. It wasn't like a threatening thing. So I think that's a pretty good example of like that. I could have executed on that plan a little bit better. But the map was sort of not on my side in that particular scenario, and I didn't think about it until, I didn't think about it until it was happening, and I was like, oh yeah, should have planned this slightly differently.
Yeah, it's like the main annoying thing about like dragons and caves. It's like unless you make the cave big, you kind of are gimping the dragon a little bit because of the little flight.
Sapphire dragons are supposed to be in caves. They are subterranean dragons. That's their whole thing.
No, I'm just saying unless you make the cave like bigger,
No, the cave was big enough for him to fly. That wasn't the problem. The problem was he has he has these burrowing abilities, but the area was really open, so he couldn't really do anything particularly interesting with the burrowing. Like there was no, like he couldn't there wasn't really any spots where he could like burrow into a wall or something nearby and then pop out another nearby wall to like get someone from behind or something. Like the area was sort of too open.
It was like a chasm.
Yeah, okay. So it didn't. I didn't think about that, so I ended up not being able to like utilize some of his kit fully.
Yeah, because just done like Pokemon, like he digs underground, you wait a turn, everyone's like,
yeah,
all right,
but
prepare your actions.
See, but that's the thing, I did that, and it was just kind of annoying. Like it wasn't interesting because I did do that, but yeah, it wasn't like particularly exciting.
Yeah, it's similar to what I did with the giant bat, where it's because they're in like total darkness that no light can pierce. I had one character with the highest perception make perception checks to point where the monster was out, and then everyone else either took the dodge or readied an action. That's like, yeah, that's something you gotta really like hone in on and sort of bet the whole like race around, or else I feel like it gets weird. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any there.
By the way, that's my answer for one I think went well, was the bat. That worked fantastic.
Fair enough. I don't think if there's another example of me sort of like underutilizing a thing. There definitely is. It's just nothing's coming to me. Oh, I tried to use the hit the weak point for massive damage thing and totally fucked it up. Just didn't.
What happened?
Just did not execute that one at all. It just became a non-issue for the players.
What I guess what happened to make it a non-issue?
With the Talos.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
You had to like hit his core, but between the griffins and stuff, it just became like a non-issue, and you're like, oh yeah, no, we could deal with that. Yeah, it was just too easy to hit the weak point in question, and it just became like hitting him normally, so it totally went out the window. I don't know exactly what I would have done, but yeah.
As a player, the thing that kind of got me with that fight was because we were in the air flying, I had sort of lost track of, is it a positioning based thing? Right, because you remember I tried to, like, jumping on it thinking I could get in, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
And that's really, it was the positioning that sort of caught me off guard. I think yeah, I don't even know if I can give advice on that one because I don't know what I would have done. I think it wasn't bad, but there was something there.
I don't remember exactly what my plan was either. Like, I think I had a slightly different idea before I did it, and then that got fucky wucky too. So, like, it was a whole thing. Yeah, I had an idea and then flubbed the execution quite a bit to the point where afterward I was like, that didn't even, whatever.
But, you know.
I'm trying to remember because there was so many from the 3-year game. I think the saddest boss fight was definitely that rogue boss I mentioned, the one where like the players just banished it for the turn, didn't even really get the fight.
Yeah, that's tough. Sure.
What else? I'm trying to remember the 3-year video. There's too many fights in there. I've probably talked about.
Yeah, right. That's the other problem. Long campaign.
Yeah.
You're like, I've done so many boss fights.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have, honestly. And it's one of the things my players actually do like. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'll just keep doing it. I do want to do, because I haven't done it since the first time, the multiple monster phases for one creature. Like where it was the frost giant and the frost giant would rage and then turn to a dragon. I haven't done that since that one fight years ago. And I keep going back and I'm like, I want to do that again, but I haven't found like the right story or monster to do it with. And now I'm thinking, I'm like, maybe I'll just save it for the BBG of this campaign. I don't know.
I think it's a fascinating idea.
Yeah. Because, like, again, I got the idea initially from Dragon Ball Z. Because I'm like, oh, well, Frieza went from being, like, you know, first form, then second form, and then we don't talk about third form, and then the final form. And then the final form where he's, like, roided up. And then Robot Frieza. And then Golden Frieza. And then now, you know, and then we have Black Frieza.
I'll call it Golden Frieza.
Like, the monsters having different phases idea made sense to me, but like I just assumed like, oh, I'll just take a stat block and like it's either A, you can buff it up, or B, find a similar stat block, which again now, and I mentioned a couple weeks ago where it's like nowadays like there's like 10 different fucking frost giant stat blocks I can fucking pick galore from. So I'm like, oh, this is great. Yeah, I haven't found anything similar to that, like I guess in the Magic School campaign. Like I have a couple ideas, but nothing like super concrete yet. But that is, I don't know. Yeah, other phases besides adding mythic actions. Like, I don't know, even if you're like really low level, like you can kind of do this. Like, let's say there's a fucking, I don't know, you're fighting a goblin boss. They're like, what, CR1? And it just pulls out this like, I don't know, ancient fucking like potion. And it drinks the potion, transforms into another monster. And then halfway through the fight, it transforms into oh wait, actually no. I'm sorry, I did do this recently. In Fizzbands, there's a dragon called there's a monster called the Dragon Flesh. What is it called? Dragon Flesh Grafter.
Yeah.
And it's basically, what if a human grafts a dragon part onto their body and mutates them? And there's two phases. There's two, like, you know, stat blocks. There's the one where it's like, I'm semi-humanoid, and I have like a dragon arm or a dragon tail or whatever. And then there's, you know, that one dog girl from Full Metal Alchemist where it's like, help me, Rick. I'm half dragon now. And it's like, oh, you poor child. I have to put you down. And so my players, that was actually the first boss fight of the Strixhaven campaign. Actually, it was the end of like when they hit level 4 or 5. I used that thing, and then once they beat like the first form, they're like, all right, we did it. He's gone. and then he transformed into like the horrifying dragon monstrosity. And you're like, surely Matt won't throw a dragon at us at level 4. And it technically wasn't a dragon.
True, it's not.
So I was in the clear.
Surely he won't do it again. And then he did.
Oh, I love right now where literally they're in a lair.
Before we go any further.
Huh? What?
I was saying, before we go any further, we can just take a quick pause.
Pause?
Yes.
For everybody who's listening, you won't notice a damn thing. But anyway, sorry about that, y'all. What was I? Oh, Matt was saying something, and has forgotten. So,
yeah.
Damn it.
Had a little fucky wucky. But it's all good now. It's all good.
Is it, Matt?
Yeah.
Did you remember what you were saying?
Nope.
Then how is it? Then how is it all good? All right.
Anyways, one other aspect of boss fights I'd like to talk about.
Go ahead, Matt. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah. How do you...
Action economy. This is the biggest thing I've had to learn as a DM
like
because
economy.
Yeah, it's action economy. Yeah.
No, economy is bad.
No, your face is bad. Anyways, the action economy, especially someone who has 6 players, if I throw one boss out there and it doesn't have like enough actions, it's just gonna get melted. And yes, you can kind of help that out by throwing minions and environmental stuff, but like, giving monsters more things to do on their turn against more players can help, giving them bonus actions, reactions. If you don't want to fully give them legendary actions, you can give them minor like villain actions or whatever from the MCDM thing, the action-oriented stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say if you're fighting a boss, one boss, you have to make sure they have, my rule of thumb is they have as many actions per round, not per turn, per round, as there are players. Or close. Yeah. I think if you want to like lighten it up on the boss fight, do, half as many players plus 1. So like when they fought the giant Kraken thing in my game, there's 6 of them. It does 2 to 3 attacks per turn, depending on what it's doing. And it has 2 to 3 attacks per turn. And it's legendary actions, again, depending on what it's doing. But if it's just going to go the most basic option and whack each person with a tentacle, it's got 6 of those total. 1 for everybody.
Yeah,
1 for everybody.
And if you want, like, that way, what I've learned is, and it's kind of what I was talking about the last time I was hosting, right? Where the cool thing about a dragon having 3 just straight up damage attacks is that due to the different die type and number, you can sort of guesstimate roughly how much damage is going to come out of that. So if you are trying to, take it a little bit more easy on your party, and you have an attack that does a max of like 30 damage versus a max of like 18 damage, you're probably going to do that max of 18 damage on one of the weaker players and hit the characters with more health for the bigger damage because they can take it,
We take a moment to appreciate that Isaiah just explained how averages work in a way more complicated way.
I was going to ask you if you ever used averages for monsters.
That's what Isaiah was saying. Yes, averages.
No. Same, honestly.
No, I've not used averages.
There's a part of me that wants to use averages, but I like rolling.
I like the swinginess of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the issue is like if you do. So I think you can do averages for like minions, right? Smaller stuff. But if you start doing averages for boss fights, you take the swinginess away. I think you need a level of swinginess to make the fight interesting. And people are just going to be like, okay, he hits you. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to mark down 18 damage again. Oh, he hits me again. Okay, cool, 18 damage. It sort of gets rid of the like, oh, wow, he actually rolled pretty low. And the players have that like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Or inversely, it's like, so he crit, and everyone just kind of goes, you got to be kidding me. You're there just like, sorry, bud.
Yeah.
Yes, Matt, sorry. Before I went on this tangent, you're talking about action.
No, that was it. That was basically just, give monsters multiple actions, legendary actions if you want. I know Wizards have been making, and actually other third-party companies have been doing this too, where they they won't give monsters full like legendary actions. Oh, they'll give them like 1 or 2 legendary actions that do on a turn. There's a monster actually from the what's that show called? The Netflix one. Fuck, Stranger Things. The Thessal Hydra, whatever, which is an old edition D&D monster that they updated for that adventure specifically. It's like a CR4 creature. So it's not even strong, but they give it legendary actions, and it's like, you know, one is just a bite attack and the other is move. It's like simple things like that can, you know, help out. So you can even give a low level monster like some legendary actions, and it'll help.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good way of doing lower level boss fights.
Yes, I think lower level monsters, absolutely. There should be more legendary actions divvied out to lower level monsters.
Yeah. Although now if they're getting rid of them, now you're going to have the goblin boss with like 18 reactions.
I mean, I guess that kind of works too.
Sure, yeah. Well, like, I feel like with that, it makes the monsters more reactive than like, all right, at the end of your turn, then I, as the DM, can now do something fun. It's like, I have to wait for something to happen so that I can do something. And I kind of am like, well, I guess I'll just sit here and I'll wait. Like, the goblin boss has his cool self-destruct ability, but only when he takes fire damage. For G. Willikers, mister, I really hope someone fucking hits him with fire damage. Like the red dragonborn.
Willikers, mister. I hope, really hope you hit Teddy with some fire damage. Haha. He's coming for you.
This is unrelated, but
oh yeah, wait,
Christmas,
Josh. What? Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say, Isaiah? My bad.
Oh, I was gonna say, you did the Mickey thing, and I remember on Christmas I got like everyone in my family one thing each because I was broke as fuck this year. But if I wanted someone to pick the present I got them, I'm like, you should have the big blue one. Haha. And people would just start fucking dying.
Nice.
I was about to say, Josh, we could use Steamboat Willie now. You just gotta have Steamboat Willie, but he's holding a giant D20 for the thumbnail. There you go. Genius.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Steamboat Willie's a boss fight. I don't know.
Is he?
I don't know. Listen, we could use it now. He's free. He's public domain.
Honestly, we probably could have used him before. It's a fucking YouTube thumbnail. Who cares? Nobody obeys copyright laws for YouTube thumbnails.
Nice.
Oh wait, shit! I forgot. I forgot to bring up the fight that I think I flubbed horribly. And then, for me, that fight was honestly, it was the final fight of like the big war arc thing that I had going on. Not with the bandit dude, but with Gariel, the big croc guy. Because like I don't really know what I could have done because they had just come off the back of like a really like action-packed sort of end of Mad Max style fight, and then did another one, which is the actual ending. And I think the only option I had there was just to not put two boss fights right after the other in the final arc and expect the latter one to be as cool, you know? Because it was like, I think if it was a standard boss fight, because he didn't have anything like super crazy about him. He had like a minigun, like cone attack that he had, and then he just had a lot of attacks. But there was nothing like, although I guess he had like a weak point for extra damage, and if they had like done enough damage to that thing, it like nerfed him really hard. But it just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the opposite of rose-tinted goggles. I'm like, this is just bad. It's not as cool as the other one. Put more work in the other one. You know?
I mean,
like,
if you're gonna have two boss fights sort of one after the other, one is gonna be cooler than the other, you know? That's just,
yeah,
it's impossible not to do that. But I do think there's something to be said for like having, here's the first boss fight that's sort of complicated and there's weird stuff going on and I came up with some unique mechanics, yada yada yada. And now here's the boss fight right after it that's like sort of the here's the victory lap boss fight where you just get to pound his face into the dirt and feel good about yourself, you know? Because
True. There's something to be said about that.
a lot of video game RPGs do that. I mean, the first example I think of is Final Fantasy X, where technically the final boss that you fight is Yu Yevon, but really Jecht is the final boss because he's the actual fight that you have to like pay attention. The Yu Yevon boss fight, you just kind of clown on that nerd just to feel good about yourself at the end, you know?
True.
So I think there's something to be said for that idea of first boss, complicated, second boss, just punch him in the nads. I think that's kind of fun.
Lord, take his balls.
That could be cool.
Yeah, take his balls.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. I hadn't thought about it like that.
I think there's some fun in that idea.
When it comes to the second phase, like idea, are you guys yay or nay on the whole like mythic action thing?
Yeah, I love that shit. It's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's fantastic. I think you can't overuse it. I think it's a very specific kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean,
like I said,
every other dude can't have a mythic phase.
No.
yeah, and I think the thing that I said the other day, if you have a boss that you want to have a second phase, and you don't want to like just give everything mythic, the tactic of phase 2, like you just don't use some parts of the character sheet, or like, for example, a dragon. If you want to do a really interesting lower level dragon fight, don't have it use its breath weapon until half left.
Until like,
it's blood.
yeah, it's half HP. Yeah, it's still blood. Yeah, listen, the thing with mythic phases or mythic actions and the phase 2 and the phase, even in video games, the phase change, right? The whole point, they're all doing or unlocking a specific ability. They're all doing the same thing, which is adding novelty to the boss fight that you've been doing for a little while, right? We fought this boss for 3 to 4 rounds. It's starting to get stale. And then you go, here's a phase 2. I have now changed up what was going on before. Now it's interesting again because we have reintroduced novelty. Things have changed. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week. Not that Isaiah was here, but about the idea of like keeping things interesting by having continuous change and keeping things sort of volatile and all over the place.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. You know, you're introducing novelty into a situation that was starting to lack it. So how you go about it doesn't really matter. You could go about it a bazillion different ways. At the core of it, it's changing up what's going on and reintroducing novelty so that the interest is now re-peaked from where it was before, because things have started to get too stale and samey. You know, like, and as long as you keep that focus, that singular idea in the back of your head of that introducing novelty, you could go about it in pretty much any way you want. So yeah, mythic actions works, bloodied abilities.
Oh yeah,
swapping out the type of monster for a different monster, like all that shit.
Yeah, I told you guys about the PDFs I got from DM's Guild. Some creator made basically has been going through every 5e book and giving each monster bloody conditions and shit. And I've used them a couple of times in the Strixhaven game.
Yeah, because they're a fun little, you know, they're a fun way to execute on that idea. And also giving a monster or an enemy of any kind, you know, giving an enemy a singular new ability it's a good way to tune that dial, right? Like at level 10, you fight a big boss monster and they hit phase 2 and they get like 3 or 4 crazy new abilities. At level 5, they get 1 new ability or whatever, because, you know, you don't want to go as crazy. So they just unlock 1 thing. And that's still enough of a novelty that it should pique the interest a little bit, you know. Is it going to be as exciting as like multiple new abilities? Not necessarily, but it's still something. And I think at lower level, it's okay if it's not as crazy. Yeah. Especially if you're trying to have players who are learning and stuff. So, yeah. It's all about I've been thinking about this a lot lately in regards to the tabletop world. Monotony is really just the enemy of the hobby in general. As well as many other things. Like, I think video games monotony is the enemy too. But, you know, you'll hear people always, what's one of the number one damning things you hear from someone when they're saying how much they dislike a game? They're like, oh, it's so repetitive. People say that all the time. Oh, I hate the new Assassin's Creed games. They're really repetitive, right? It really is. It's monotony, right? Like the monotonous nature of it is the enemy. And I think when it comes to tabletop, because we have the power, right? With a video game, it's hard. You're going to have a degree of monotony. You're going to have a degree of repetitiveness. It's impossible not to, because it's a video game. You have to, pre-make everything ahead of time. But tabletop is ever changing, ever ephemeral, as I keep using lately. We have this ability to just on the fly be like, all right, now I'm going to introduce something else. So we need to use that power that we have in as GM and player side, right? Because of the ephemeralness, because of the strange way in which we play tabletop games, which is to say we all collectively hallucinate with each other and agree on this very weird philosophical secondary universe and create our own matrix. You could get into a very weird rabbit hole about the idea of tabletop and how it's actually quite strange. But because we have that power over this shared hallucination universe we're creating, we can deal with that monotony problem quite easily. So I think that should always be one of your number one priorities. And you look at it like, why does my game feel boring? Oh, we've been doing the same thing for a really long time. All right, time to change it up. Like, that's almost always going to be the answer in some fashion. Now, how you do the change up, that's where it's hard, right? Like, it's easy to say, oh, just change it up. That's easy to say. How you actually do that, that's the tricky part. But as long as you have a target to go for, that helps. It gives you something.
Yeah, let me tell you, my biggest thing for sure when I'm running that kills me is when I don't have a set objective for the players to go after.
Yeah.
When things are up to them, and I do leave it up to them a good amount of time because I don't want to feel like I'm just constantly dragging them by their coattails. And there's that what do we want to do? And I'm drowning because I'm just right. I hate I'm gonna have one of those sessions tomorrow, and it's killing me.
Well, and the monotony in that scenario is the fact that everyone's sitting around looking at each other, trying to come up with ideas or saying little random offhand things, right? So the repetitiveness is that we're all sort of trying to do the same thing without a clear goal or whatever. Yeah, it's like an aimlessness. It's yeah, now I'm doing that thing where you say a word too many times. So I said monotonous so many times, and now it doesn't sound like a fucking word anymore.
Yeah, now it just doesn't have any meaning anymore.
Yeah, I hate that shit. God damn it. But what's funny too is you can tease it out even further, because you can have monotony in how often you use a word. Wow. You can have monotony in the style of speech. You can have monotony in the way you start every session, right? It can creep into everywhere. And sometimes it's the funny thing is sometimes, a lot of the time it's bad. There are certain scenarios where you actually want to have repetitiveness, because it's like it's a grounding thing. It's that idea of we joke about it, but every time the announcer says last time on Dragon Ball Z, what happens subconsciously is your brain clicks into it's Dragon Ball Z time. We are now doing the Dragon Ball Z thing, because you do it every time. So you get into that mode. You're like, I am now in Dragon Ball Z mode. You get ready for it just from that one phrase. So there's situations where the repetitiveness is good, but when it comes to boss fights, the overarching idea of the boss fight, you don't want to get repetitive. But then at the same, my brain's going in a lot of directions, because At the same time, initiative is a very repetitive concept, but I would say initiative is a good form of repetitive because when you say, okay, everybody roll initiative, it's a very specific indicator of we're now switching modes into this part of the game. We're doing this thing now. And that's a good. Okay, you know what? Somebody stop me. I don't know.
Getting too deep. It's getting too deep.
I'm thinking it. Well, because I'm thinking about it more and more, and I'm like, and I'm thinking about how like anime openings are literally that, right? Like every time the opening starts, your brain goes, it's anime time. Somebody get me out of here.
All right.
Take me somewhere else.
I mean, I think I've said kind of all I've had to say about boss fights. Like,
it's a very.
I think I sort of get.
It's a very.
I think I get myself by talking about it a lot last. Like,
a little.
I was
bit.
like, I'm going to touch on this the other episode, and I talked about it for like 30 minutes.
It's a very nuanced thing. I mean, I guess all of tabletop is a nuanced thing, but something about the boss fight feels particularly nuanced in a way. I don't know, in a sort of unique way. And there is no one answer.
No.
But I think it's good to identify a North Star for yourself, if you will, like a guiding target to be always sort of aiming towards. Which is why I was saying that idea of keep the monotony away is sort of a good guiding target, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm never going to say this word ever again after today.
Yeah.
Monotony?
Yes. Yeah. I
guess I'll just add, just as an ending, always remember, like, you can tweak creatures and bosses. Like, there's different dials we can turn. Like, you can always adjust the HP, the AC, how many actions it gets, movement, and you can do it on the fly in combat. You can just change shit. And you can make, make combat more interesting. Or maybe if you overclock the fight, you can always, tune it back a little bit, if the players do something.
For sure. It is something that can be kept very malleable, and it allows you to sort of update on the fly if things are not going according to plan. If it is becoming really monotonous, you have the ability to throw a spanner into the works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, and besides that, give your boss, it's a boss, give it a personality. Like, even if it's only
don't make them dude make guy.
Yeah, even if they only met the thing like this session, make it quirky, make it evil, like whatever, like make it a villain, make it a character, and have it say some funny lines or quotes or whatever, and the players will be like, oh, I love that guy, and then they'll stomp its, kick its head in.
Yeah,
I love that guy. He proceeds to kick head in.
Jojo stomps and drinks wine.
The Passione beatdown. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned just tweak the numbers on the fly. I still feel so conflicted about that.
See, the majority, and I've mentioned this multiple times, the only things I really fudge, air quotes, or tweak most of the time is health. If I feel like a fight's going on a little too long, I'll take a little bit of health off. If I feel like my players, I want it to survive maybe one more round of combat, I'll fucking just, add some health to it or whatever. But like, I haven't actually necessarily done that in a little bit. Even with the devil fight with my buddy Joe critting the thing like 2 or 3 fucking times, attacking it while prone. He did 75% of the monster's health, and I was just like, well, that's hilarious. Like, I just gotta deal with it. But you can always, tweak shit like, you've done so much damage to the boss that now it's bloodied. However, its armor is cracked and chipped, so now its AC is lowered by 5 or whatever the fuck. Or
I think,
oh no, you chopped off the monster's arm, so now it has 1 less attack or some shit.
Right.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I think my problem is that once I've committed to the words and the math on the stat block, I feel like I have to go through with it almost as like a science experiment. Like you can't, like, no, you can't tweak the variables while you're doing the experiment. Then the experiment is invalid. You know, like, yeah, I have this commitment, like it needs to be the way it is because I need to see what happens. I need to know what the outcome is.
I can see it.
Which is probably not, like, I don't know that I'm actually gaining anything out of doing that, but I feel like I should do it.
I mean, the issue is, right, is I think the variables themselves, I think, is the players. I think the boss is the control, right? Because the boss is something that you have utter control over. Whereas the independent variable is the thing that you don't control, being the players.
Well, but...
So I think it's okay to alter your control based on the monkey wrench that is your players and party.
But then it's not a control anymore. Like you literally can't alter a control. That's why it's a control. Right? Like when you're doing an experiment, the control has to stay static for it to be an effective control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. The boss would be you. I guess you're the control, and therefore the boss would be your dependent variable, which is the thing that you shift in time with the dependent variable based on the outcomes.
Yeah, but I this feels like a weird rabbit hole that I don't know that we should go down. Like, I don't know. It's like I want to keep the boss the way I committed to it beforehand because I want to see what happens as a lesson for the future. You know, like whether it's good or bad, I can look at it and go, all right, the lesson was learned. And I feel like if I fuck with it mid-fight, I'm perhaps diluting the lesson that I could potentially get out of it.
It could also be course correcting mid-fight. Like, you're like, you see the problem with this initially, and you're like, all right, well, if I just do this one quick adjustment mid-fight, then the rest will go a lot smoother, and like, all right, you still have the whole, oh, what did we learn today? And then for the future, you can, improve on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that you necessarily need to see a fight to its conclusion to have learned a lesson from it. I think there's a lot of things that become apparent in the first round, if not the second, on how things are going to go.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, but it
just feels wrong. I don't know. I don't like tweaking those numbers in the background. It's a weird thing.
Is it because we've talked about this in previous episodes, but I don't think we've ever keyed in. Is it because you might not, like, you wouldn't like it if the numbers were tweaked on you if you were in a party?
I mean, if I don't know, it's like I don't care, right? And like you probably wouldn't say anything, but would I be annoyed if I found out? I mean, I guess it depends on the reason. Because if my GM says, oh, I lowered the boss's HP and made them die faster because I was just getting really bored and I was tired and I just didn't want to deal with it, I might be a little annoyed with that. But if they said, oh, I lowered their HP because I realized that I way overcranked the damage and I actually did the math wrong, and so it was not a situation I had intended for, I'm less annoyed about that because, okay, you were prepping and then you fucked up the math and you didn't realize, and that bothers me less. So I guess it kind of depends on why. But I try to avoid it as much as possible because I want to avoid that situation where I fucked with the numbers behind the scenes and then I didn't do it for like a good reason. Like I did it in the moment, and then the players are like, I wish you didn't do that. And I'm like, shit. I guess that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, I think the same, it works both ways though, right? If like you don't tell the players that you fucked with the numbers.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like I would though. I feel like every time if I do ever do something like that, I'm gonna say something. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I can say if I have anything for that. That's just like just fight for your life to not do.
It's like, well, it's like I feel,
yeah.
well, it's like I feel guilty almost, you know? I get like a weird guilt about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's for the benefit technically of the game, for the players, like, you know.
It is.
It's not being unless you're being a bad DM and you're like, oh no, they one-shot my boss.
Right.
I guess I'll add 500 more health to it.
It's
like,
not,
no, fucking,
yeah.
You're not doing that.
I'm not
like,
being malicious, but I'm not. It's like I'm not committing to the agreed. I feel like I'm cheating the agreed hallucination. We all have the social contract on this is how it works, and I'm now cheating the contract by messing with the numbers. Like, when you're prepping, you are outside of the contract space. You are in a different dimension. You're doing things, you know, in your own way. Once the session begins, you have locked back into the social constructs. You are back in the shared hallucination space. You must now abide by the rules that we are all abiding by. And if you don't, it feels like you're cheating. That feels weird. Even if it's not malicious, it still feels like I'm doing something wrong. You know, it's like when you're in the courtroom, you follow certain rules, and then you leave the courtroom, and now we don't need to follow all those rules necessarily. It's like,
I could do all the cocaine I want now that I'm outside the public townhouse.
maybe not that, but you know, it's like
just like standing right there brings you back inside. You're like, no, wait.
Yeah, it's like you exist in a different space between session and during session, and I don't. I don't know that I can articulate this rabbit hole very well.
I get what you're saying. I think for me, the thing is you as a human being are inherently flawed. So the idea that you're going to nail the math,
you're not going to nail it every time.
The feel and the vibe
it's true. Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to nail it. The idea that you got I think on a subconscious level, there is an amount of shifting the things that you do in the middle of a fight, right? Like, you know, intrinsically, well, I'm not going to bully the fucking bard every fight, even though it's statistically the right thing to do, or strategically it's the right thing to do to get the victory. You're not going to do that because it's not fun, right? So there's a level of that you're already doing. The idea that you're always going to get the math right is, it's just not. You know, you're just not going to do it.
It's true. You're not.
So I get not mad, but I get confused when I hear a more like firm and volatile version of that idea online, where it's like, no, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, what if, like, me as a DM, if I'm thinking, like, but what if I fucked up? The players have to get TPK because I didn't do the math right? And if a DM if someone says that online, like, yep, that's what you have to do, I'd be like, you're a clown.
I guess
you are not a clown. You're the entire circus.
I guess I guess I feel like you need to wallow, because it's true. You're not gonna get it. I mean, you'll get it right sometimes. But yeah, it's true. You're not gonna nail it every time. But I guess it's the idea that you need to wallow in that failure a little bit to make sense of it, but at the same time, by you wallowing in your failure, you are indirectly making 4 other people wallow in your failure. I mean, it's not their fault,
that's
which
the
makes
thing. That's exactly it.
That's true.
And I'm like, it's like sure, I can fuck up, but if I like the players didn't
Right,
deserve to
it's
get
not
TPK
their-
because I didn't do
yeah.
the math right. So like, what the fuck?
Right. But then the social contract still sort of dictates that we're all obeying this math that we're putting down, because if you don't obey the math, what's the point of having the game there? Yeah. I'm not going to get to a conclusion here. I don't have a conclusion. There is no yeah. I don't know. This is going to bounce around in my head for a long time probably. Cuz like you're not wrong, but I don't know. Neither of us are as wrong is the problem here, I guess.
No, I mean, yeah, neither of us are wrong. It's a sort of a question of philosophy at the end of the day.
It is. That's the problem. We're getting we're unintentionally getting real deep in the philosophy weeds, which was I wasn't planning on it, but here we are. Yeah.
Edie, what Edie?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. So, huh?
I mean, I think it is a very like poignant thing about boss fights, right? Is getting it right, and I think
yeah, because
for me,
boss fights is when it becomes the most apparent. That's when it comes to the foreground the most. It's when you notice
for
it.
sure. And I sort of stand on you getting it right is way more on you and your ability to control the situation. And I don't mean control as in like literally, well, okay, they're going to do this much damage. It's just your ability to sort of guide the narrative. That to me, that's the social contract. Because the social contract is I've come here, like we've all sort of gone together. I am trying to lay these paths out for you in an interesting and meaningful way. As far as I'm concerned, the math it is a part of that, but it's a minor one. Because again, if you're going purely off the numbers, then you start getting into the statistics and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to focus down the bard and then I'm going to focus down the rogue because they've only got one reduction per turn. And there's no real point about going after the barbarian to the end because then he's got nothing to protect and no one to defend him when I start slamming him with saving throws, you know? And then if you do that, what the fuck is the point? You're just going to murk your party.
So you're saying the part of the social contract that is all of the players are agreeing to let me as the GM bring them on a fun ride supersedes all of the other aspects. It is more important, ergo you need to abide by it. If the bring them on the fun ride part of the contract is threatened, you should prioritize it over the other stuff.
Yes, yeah. To me, the bring them on a fun ride is the principle, right? It is the highest in the hierarchy.
It's
everything else is below that.
It's the First Amendment.
Are subject to
yeah,
and everything below that is subject to change and flow. Because if the players aren't having a good time, there's literally no point to any of it. You know?
Yeah.
Yourself too. You as the DMR player, if you're not having
right.
I can't imagine a situation outside of an RPG horror story where the GM is like having a great time and the players are like, fuck, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, generally that doesn't happen unless the GM is trying to be a shitlord and that's their fun, in which case you need therapy, not D&D. Yeah, okay. Well, that's an intriguing point that I hadn't necessarily thought about, is that there's a hierarchy on the rules of the contract.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean that does make sense. Okay. You've convinced me.
Me sitting in my Buddha pose.
You perhaps swayed me in a direction. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this information, but it makes sense.
Theory.
Oh, don't say that, Matt. Now I'm
no, he's gone. Matt. Don't bring
now.
him
Now I'm sad about it. End of an era.
You fucker. All right. Well, now that Matt has killed the vibe, Abelard, throw him out the window.
And
smack Matt's nuts off.
Yeah. Bailiff, blast his cock off.
Shit.
Okay, as an aside, that one, Slap His Nuts is still the funniest version of that because it's the original and the classic. But Blast His Cock Off has to be
Close second.
in terms of sheer originality.
Strong second. Strong second.
Because it's you use very specific verbiage. It's not like, bailiff, shoot him in the balls, or like shoot him in the dick. It's blast his cock off. It evokes such mental imagery.
Yes. Very specific choice of words.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh,
amazing.
fuck.
Anyway, Josh, tell him the ending bit. You got it.
If you want to hear about more philosophical ramblings, follow us on Twitter so you know when a new episode is out. This went into a weird place. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Fair enough. ED, what ED?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's been us. It's been Sessions Canceled.
Yeah.
Follow us next time for our ramblings on mini boss fights.
Oh,
actually, hold on, pause. Mini bosses is something that I think is worth talking about because
we didn't even.
there's a fine line of like throwing something halfway into the dungeon just to soften
Isaiah,
the
we
players
can't
up,
do
right?
this
Just to-
now.
Damn, we didn't even talk
Alright, fair
about
enough,
minions
fine.
too. Fuck.
Jot it down. Jot it down, Isaiah.
Next time.
Nope,
Boss 2.
next time,
Electric
next time,
Boogaloo.
next
Notes for later. Notes for later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah.
All right. That's us done. See ya.
Tell us in the comments. Do you put your dong in vacuums? Do you use boss fights?
Matt, what the fuck? Matt, log off. You're done.